What does it really mean to capture D-Day on film? Is it the roar of the Higgins boats, the chaos of Omaha Beach, or the silent fear before dawn? Across decades, filmmakers have tried to recreate June 6, 1944, and veterans have never been silent about who got it right and who did not. Tonight, we count down 10 D-Day movies ranked by historical accuracy through the eyes of those who were there. Number 10, The Longest Day, 1962. A towering war epic made at the height of Cold War tension. The Longest Day was once hailed as the definitive D-Day film. Shot in sweeping black and white across France, it gathered an all-star cast, including John Wayne, Henry Fonda, and Richard Burton, to reenact the invasion hour by hour. The result was both spectacular and strangely sterile. The movie's ambition was enormous. It recreated troop landings, airborne drops, and resistance sabotage with staggering precision. Veterans praised its scope, but noted one flaw. It felt too clean. The film avoided the chaos, confusion, and gore that define the real beaches. Producer Darryl F. Zanuck demanded historical accuracy, even hiring military advisors from multiple nations. Yet the studio's need for accessibility dulled the horror. Behind the scenes, French authorities restricted explosive use near historical sites, forcing creative workarounds. Over 2 years of production turned it into one of the most expensive war films ever made at the time. When veterans saw it, some saluted its attention to logistics. The paratrooper jumps were almost perfect, but others said it felt like a parade, not a nightmare. Still, The Longest Day became the cinematic template for every D-Day movie that followed. It preserved the invasion as a coordinated miracle rather than the messy human tragedy it was. Sometimes accuracy comes at the cost of emotion, and The Longest Day remains both a triumph and a compromise. Number 9. D-Day, the 6th of June, 1956. Before The Longest Day, there was this Hollywood's first major attempt to tackle D-Day head-on. D-Day, the 6th of June, mixed war spectacle with forbidden love, a risky move in the patriotic 50s. Critics called it romanticized and unrealistic, but for its era, it was daringly somber. The story follows an American officer and a British nurse torn apart by war, their personal drama unfolding against the countdown to the Normandy invasion. Unlike later bloodier portrayals, this film approached D-Day as a tragic inevitability, a storm that destroys lives beyond the battlefield. The invasion itself was modestly staged with limited extras and recycled footage, yet its emotional realism surprised many veterans. Some veterans complained that it sentimentalized the operation, while others defended its quieter tone. The real controversy came from British censors who objected to its depiction of Anglo-American tension. Director Henry Koster insisted on showing command rivalries which mirrored actual debates between Eisenhower's planners and Montgomery's staff. Behind the camera, logistical nightmares plagued the shoot. The British Ministry of Defense restricted uniform use, forcing Fox Studios to recreate regalia in secret workshops. Despite modest box office results, the film endured in veteran circles for its humanity. It remembered the invasion not just as a victory, but as a loss measured in faces, not numbers. D-Day. The 6th of June may lack spectacle, but its restraint hides a strange honesty, the quiet before the cinematic storm. Number 8. Overlord, 1975. Made by British filmmaker Stuart Cooper. Overlord is perhaps the most haunting D-Day film ever crafted, and also the least seen. Shot in grainy black and white, it fused newly filmed drama with authentic World War II footage from the Imperial War Museum. The result was an eerie dreamscape, half documentary, half nightmare. The film follows a young soldier named Tom from training camp to Normandy. There are no heroes, no speeches, only a sense of drifting fate. When veterans first saw Overlord, they were stunned. The archival footage, real bombings, real bodies, hit harder than any studio recreation. The accuracy was beyond debate because much of it was real. Yet that realism came with controversy. British censors nearly banned the film for excessive morbidity. Studio executives feared it was too bleak for audiences. Cooper refused to cut it, arguing that war had to look like Death Not Glory. The production faced its own battles. Mixing 1940s film stock with new footage required meticulous technical work down to matching the shutter speed and grain pattern. The film languished in obscurity for decades until the Criterion Collection restored it in high definition, revealing its haunting beauty to a new generation. Veterans called Overlord the only D-Day movie that truly felt like war, not the noise or blood, but the quiet certainty of dying far from home. Sometimes the most accurate portrayal is the one too real to watch twice. Number 7. The Big Red One, 1980, directed by war veteran Samuel Fuller. The Big Red One is part autobiography and part raw confession. It follows the 1st Infantry Division from North Africa to Normandy and beyond, blending bitter humor with the unfiltered fatigue of men who have seen too much. While many films glorified D-Day, Fuller stripped it bare, showing chaos, confusion, and quiet horror instead of heroism. The landings in the Big Red One were filmed on Israeli beaches with remarkable precision. Fuller, who had fought in the real invasion, demanded total authenticity. He forced actors to crawl through wet sand under real explosives and sometimes screamed orders himself to recreate the fear he once felt. Veterans who saw the film recognized its emotional truth, even if the geography was not perfect. Yet its realism made studios nervous. Executives trimmed down Fuller's 3-hour cut into a shorter version, losing much of the invasion detail. Critics were divided. Some called it fragmented, others hailed it as the most honest World War II film ever made. Years later, a restored version premiered at Cannes using Fuller's original notes, and suddenly the world saw what he had intended. A messy, desperate portrait of survival that felt real because it was. The Big Red One is not about winning or losing. It is about endurance and the cost of staying human when everything around you demands otherwise. Number 6. Saving Private Ryan, 1998. When Steven Spielberg released Saving Private Ryan, it was like the world suddenly remembered how terrifying D-Day truly was. The opening 20 minutes at Omaha Beach shocked audiences and veterans alike. There were no clean shots, no triumphant music, just the endless screams of men torn apart by gunfire and surf. Many veterans wept in theaters, saying it was the first time a movie had captured what it felt like to be there. Spielberg and cinematographer Janusz Kaminski studied archival footage and used handheld cameras to mimic combat photography. Blanks and squibs were replaced with real explosive charges in the sand. The chaos was choreographed, but felt uncontrollable. Even Tom Hanks admitted he forgot he was acting during those takes. Despite universal praise, the film sparked controversy. Some critics accused Spielberg of glorifying violence through realism. Others said the second half drifted into fiction, but veterans and historians defended it as a near-documentary recreation of the landing. Behind the scenes, hundreds of Irish soldiers were hired as extras. Spielberg banned comfort breaks to keep morale tense and real. The camera lenses were stripped of protective coating to achieve a desaturated wartime look. Saving Private Ryan redefined the modern war film. It became both memorial and warning, showing that heroism means surviving horror, not escaping it. Number 5. The Americanization of Emily, 1964. A dark anti-war satire hiding inside a love story. The Americanization of Emily flipped the D-Day narrative upside down. While most films celebrated the invasion, this one mocked the machinery of military pride and hypocrisy. James Garner plays a cowardly officer who becomes a reluctant symbol of heroism, while Julie Andrews portrays a grieving widow trapped between patriotism and trauma. At the time, it was scandalous. Audiences in the early 60s were not ready to see D-Day questioned as anything less than sacred. Veterans called it disrespectful, while critics hailed it as daringly honest. Screenwriter Paddy Chayefsky refused to glorify death, arguing that war thrives on self-deception. His dialogue sliced through the myths Hollywood had built around Normandy. Behind the scenes, producers faced government pushback. The U.S. Navy refused cooperation after reading the script. Filming had to rely on private vessels and improvised uniforms. Yet the result was sharp-biting and surprisingly prophetic. Years later, Yeats historians praised its bravery. While it lacked battlefield scenes, its accuracy lay in attitude, the exhaustion of soldiers who no longer believed in slogans. The Americanization of Emily remains one of the few D-Day films to question the morality of dying for show. It is a mirror held up to patriotism, asking if courage still means anything when war itself becomes performance. Number 4. Atonement, 2007. Though not a traditional war movie, Atonement contains one of the most haunting recreations of D-Day's aftermath ever filmed. Director Joe Wright used a single 5-minute tracking shot on the beaches of Dunkirk to show soldiers trapped in chaos, exhaustion, and disbelief. While technically set before the Normandy invasion, its attention to battlefield realism left veterans stunned by its accuracy of tone. The sequence was filmed in a single continuous take involving more than 1,000 extras, horses' wreckage, and singing choirs against the ruins of retreat. Everything from the tattered uniforms to the despairing faces reflected what veterans described as the same emotional collapse seen in Normandy. No slow motion, no glory. Just disbelief that survival could feel so hollow. Historians later confirmed that the technical precision was stunning. Every prop and every vehicle came from museum archives. The camera movement mirrored the confusion of a soldier walking aimlessly through history. Joe Wright refused digital tricks, insisting on authenticity through exhaustion. The cast and crew rehearsed for days until the take worked in perfect chaotic rhythm. Though some purists argued that Dunkirk was not D-Day veterans, said its accuracy of despair matched what they had lived through. Atonement captures the emotional truth of war better than most films that claim documentary precision. It shows that accuracy is not only about maps or dates, but about the unbearable silence left after the fighting ends. Number 3. Ike Countdown to D-Day, 2004. While most D-Day movies focus on soldiers in the sand, Ike Countdown to D-Day turns its gaze to the war room. Tom Selleck plays General Dwight Eisenhower with quiet fury and exhaustion, capturing the unbearable pressure of command. Veterans who served under Ike called it the most accurate portrayal of his leadership ever shown on screen. The film avoids gunfire entirely. Instead, it shows the political infighting, logistical chaos, and the burden of knowing every decision means lives lost. It was filmed with access to declassified military documents and diaries of real commanders. Historians confirmed that much of the dialogue came directly from Eisenhower's notes and official memos. Behind the scenes, the production was shot in New Zealand with limited budget, yet the director used tight camera work and dim lighting to mirror the claustrophobia of Allied command centers. Even small details like the placement of cigars and maps were vetted by military historians. When aired on television, many veterans praised its precision, calling it a long overdue acknowledgement of the invisible war behind the war. Some viewers found it too slow, but those who had served saw truth in its silence. Ike Countdown to D-Day reminds us that accuracy is not just about showing battle. It is about the unbearable loneliness of leadership when history demands a decision no one should have to make. Number 2. Band of Brothers. Episode 2. Day of Days, 2001. Few television productions have captured D-Day with such immersive precision as the second episode of Band of Brothers titled Day of Days. Produced by Steven Spielberg and Tom Hanks, it followed Easy Company of the 101st Airborne as they parachuted into chaos before dawn. Veterans who saw it said it was the most faithful dramatization of the airborne invasion ever put on screen. Everything was built from first-hand testimony. The cast trained under real paratrooper instructors and endured boot camp conditions for months. The sequence of planes flying into flak over Normandy was reconstructed using original mission logs. Each shot of tracer fire matched eyewitness descriptions. When it aired, survivors of Easy Company watched in stunned silence. Some wept. Others said it felt like being back in the plane again. The accuracy extended to sound design. Every explosion and distant scream layered from real combat recordings archived by the U.S. Army. Behind the scenes, the realism came at a cost. The production nearly shut down due to dangerous pyrotechnics and mud-flooded sets. Yet, the result was more than cinema. It was testimony. Day of Days proved that television could carry the same emotional weight as any film. It showed D-Day not as spectacle, but as confusion, courage, and the pure will to keep moving forward. Sometimes truth does not need grand speeches, just the sound of wind rushing past the open door of a plane and the drop into the unknown. Number 1. Storming Juno, 2010. Among the most authentic D-Day dramatizations ever produced, Storming Juno focuses on the overlooked Canadian assault at Juno Beach. Unlike the large-scale spectacles of Hollywood, this television film from History Television Canada narrows its scope to 3 soldiers, a paratrooper, a tank crewman, and an infantryman, and follows them through the chaos of June 6, 1944, in almost real time. What makes Storming Juno stand out is its devotion to first-hand testimony. Every sequence was based on interviews with surviving veterans from the Royal Canadian Regiment and the North Shore, New Brunswick Regiment. The film was shot on actual Normandy locations under harsh weather conditions to replicate the original landing environment. No gloss, no Hollywood heroics, just mud, fear, and endurance. Behind the scenes, producers worked with the Juno Beach Center and Canadian military historians to recreate period-accurate equipment down to the markings on the Sherman tanks and the weight of each paratrooper's gear. The handheld camera work and tight framing conveyed claustrophobia rather than spectacle. Veterans praised Storming Juno for finally giving Canada's role the realism it deserved. Historians noted that its tactical accuracy rivaled Saving Private Ryan while avoiding the sentimentality of most American depictions. It captured what one veteran called the moment when training stopped and survival began. In the end, Storming Juno isn't just a film. It's remembrance rendered in grit and salt water, a rare work that honors truth by refusing to look away. D-Day lives in our memory not because of glory, but because of sacrifice. Each of these films tried in its own way to bring truth to light. But which one struck you the hardest? Which image of Normandy feels the most real to you? Share your thoughts below and subscribe for more hidden chapters of war history uncovered.